Welcome to the grand finale of License-a-thon. There were so many amazing runs during this marathon, so I'm sad to see it come to a close. However, I assure you we will end with a bang, as I am honored to show you Flushed Away. My name is Kuro, and I am joined by fellow runner Newts, who is helping with commentary.
Hello ladies and laddies, we'll be playing Flushed Away, a glorious platformer where many tricks make it more nuanced than it would otherwise seem. It features exploits to skip large chunks of levels, out-of-bounds shenanigans, and some more goodies that we hope to surprise you with today in the showing by Kuro.
Yeah, thanks to the developer's strange mix of care and indifference when developing this game, it is a surprisingly intricate speed game. Newt and I could go on for hours just explaining everything, but we'll do our best to explain what we can during the run. If that's all settled, I will do a 3, 2, 1, go countdown. So, we will start the beginning of the end. In 3, 2, 1, go! So before we are eponymously flushed away, we begin in Kensington Apartment, home to Roddy St. James, our protagonist, and his two butlers, Gilbert and Sullivan. This level is split up into 3 sections. We start in the living room, which acts as a lengthy tutorial. Then, from atop the fireplace, we zipline down into the pantry, and finally end up in the kitchen, with the level ending at the sink. This level may look really open and we can explore, but it is littered with kill planes, so we can't go off path, with a few exceptions.
Yes, the first section would be longest if it were not for one exception that allows us to jump from the couch arm to the rope, then to the lamp, and carefully stay on the lamp so that we can set up a jump to this rod, which zips us down towards the pantry. It skips a combat tutorial and an extra 2D platforming section. Pantry is pretty straightforward, just have to avoid a few obstacles. And then we go through the pantry up through an opening that you'll see about 20 seconds from now. And then, because the kitchen door is locked, we have to go up there. Because originally they were going to go through there, but I don't think they'd be even, get high enough to reach there anyway. So now Kuro will attempt kitchen skip, which skips going around the perimeter of the kitchen by using an attack jump, a frame-perfect jump at the end of the attack animation, to get to this island counter. Then, since the end trigger is not loaded yet, we climb up this rope onto this pan hanger, where we then slowly go over towards the trigger for loading at the end of the level with this horizontal rope. Once far enough, we get to the end.
Unfortunately, I was shot down, so not only do you need perfect execution with kitchen skip, you also need to get lucky, not getting hit by these Norf guns, as they're called. How they aim at you, they literally calculate where you are going to be and then apply a random value. However, when you're just going directly at it, it is very likely it will hit you, which happened there. So I had to take the walk of shame, which is the normal route. I could have tried kitchen skip again, but it can just spiral downhill with bad luck. So Now I will get on the rope as I did before, and I will drop off into the kitchen sink. Like that, and Kensington is done with.
Alrighty. For the next level, we must navigate Piccadilly Square within the city Retropolis, the hub world of the game. The only 2 relevant characters here are Socket Set and Charlie Wu, the former whom we'll be visiting now. We take some out-of-the-way movement to avoid an intro cutscene, then we talk to him. Socket Set tells us to collect flies for one of his clients in exchange for info on how to get back home up top. So we go ahead and do that for him. As a level is one big loop, so we go out the same way we came in the end. We skip the loop by using coyote time, or airborne walking frames, to go under this invisible wall, which can be difficult to set up, but sometimes it works out pretty well. It may take a few tries though.
I got caught in the invisible walls.
But we go under the invisible... What's that?
I got caught in the invisible walls, so I had to reset the level.
Oh man. Understandable. It is one of the harder tricks of the game, so we might be here for a little bit, but not too long. Yes, after we get the coyote time jump, then we would jump onto the edge of that platform and then through the pipe, as Kuro does there.
Yeah, when I was first starting out, and I tried to do that trick for the first time, it took me 3 hours straight of just attempts. So I have improved, but it is still not the easiest thing to do. So now we're in the fly room, but you may notice that there aren't any flies. The game never intended us to come in this way, so we have to trick it into thinking we're supposed to be here. So I'm going to carefully fall into this elevator, which is how we get to here normally. That will spawn in the flies, so now we can collect all 6 to make our jar and leave how we came. You may notice when I fell in the elevator that I took fall damage. Fall damage is extremely lethal in this game. If I had fallen for even a frame more, I would have died. So we have ways to mitigate fall damage and to avoid it. We have the attack jumps, which we saw in Kensington Apartment, and we also have something called death cancels, which we'll see in the next level. What we won't see in the next level is Roddy St. James, as we'll be switching to our next character, Rita.
Yes, the next level introduces Rita, the other protagonist who's trying to retrieve a ruby from the Toad. Main antagonist, though she can take a holiday through the drains of Europe after selling it. Her main tool is the bungee cord, which we just call her Grapple. Pressing Y around a grapple point takes her to that point, and it's quite useful in the run, as we'll demonstrate later. So, at the beginning, once it loads up here, we can skip the tutorial cutscene for the grapple, but Kuro doesn't because it sets up a checkpoint closer to where he'll be performing a death cancel to get across the gap, which skips a bunch of climbing up, then ziplining down to where we grapple to the top of the warehouse. Death canceling involves attack the first frame you land. Both death cancels and attack jumps work for both Roddy and Rita, but both are also frame perfect. And let's see if he gets it here. First try? Ah, sadness.
Second try though, got it.
Alrighty.
So now I'm making my way up to the warehouse. The next section we'll have to do is a large, tall room where we have to constantly change the water levels in order to reach the bottom. Instead of that, we can go out of bounds and skip it entirely. So first we have to go around this box so we can climb on top of it. Then jump directly into this wooden beam. This takes us out of bounds, and we can make a big leap and fall through the entire section. Then we can grapple back up for safety and continue as normal. So yeah, as Newts was explaining previously about grappling, when Rita is grappled, she will descend slowly. You can hold the Y button to hold her position, or press A to dismount, which is what I do here. Another technique you'll see me doing is something called instant grappling. Typically when Rita does a grapple, she will have a little startup animation before the grapple actually comes out. However, if you slide off an edge or jump, that animation is skipped entirely. So we'll try and use that as much as we can. Coming up is the gear and steam rooms, and you'll also see some great examples of this game's lighting, or rather lack thereof, as Newts will explain.
Oh yeah, the brightness of this game is quite bad. I mean, I get that it's a sewer, so there's no real natural lighting, but yeah, it's quite a pain if you're running on
I'm struggling to see right now.
Even worse on my console, man. Anyway, this whole area from here on out is basically just cycle dependency upon cycle dependency. The large wheel is the first example of that, and Kuro got a decent cycle. Was able to get through pretty quickly. And the steam after is also cycle based, of course, so we can't really skip any of the steam expulsions. The hitboxes are quite large and active, besides the first half second. And you saw before we abused the range of the grapple to go past some collision, though it's the only point for which we get to do so. The climbable pipe is like the ones that we see in Kensington Apartment, the ropes, but there's a weird bit of collision around the pipe, so it's kind of hard to jump off and on. So that's why Kuro doesn't do it there. Second steam section follows the same principles as the first, so skip ahead a bit to the next part before Kuro gets there. There's no optimal cutscene skip that becomes more consistent the faster your pace is, but he opts for the cutscene to make the next part consistent. To save about 40 seconds of walking around, Kuro does what's called a grapple jump, where earlier we explained how to grapple walk and grapple jump.
So on a grapple, if you hold your position with Y and hold a direction, when you dismount, you'll be grounded for like a small window of time. It's enough to where we can jump, where we're not typically supposed to jump off a grapple. This is called a grapple jump, and like Newt says, this saves 40 seconds as opposed to having to walk around the perimeter. So now we are entering the Toad's bedroom, where we must sneak around.
Oh yeah, I love my stealthy gameplay. So instead of using the sneak animation, we do sidestepping, which saves around 3 to 4 seconds with good control. So we open the bookshelf door by pushing in on the tongue of the statue, then exit the room, where we are only one room away from the ruby. So once we're out of this room and through this hallway, we can use an insta-grapple, which if Rita has any sort of negative Y velocity, she instantly grapples so that she doesn't die from the 11-frame animation of the grapple, and then grapple jumps again to avoid falling to the ground and dying, pulling these corgi statues onto the switches to reveal the ruby for Rita to snatch. And then Spike and Whitey are just in the other room, and they're alerted to the heist Rita's pulling, so they try and of course fail to catch her. The grab boxes are very small for both of them, so even if you were basically touching either of them, you wouldn't get captured. So the only way to do so is to basically run into their loving embraces.
So now we are on the grind rail section. There's not too much to do here. All Rita can do is jump from rail to rail, as we'll see further. There's these like nuts on the pipes that deal damage to her, but fortunately we have enough health to just go through them normally. So the next level, or what Rita's approaching now, is her boat called the Jammy Dodger. It will be the star of the next level called Race with the Rats. As it moves quite differently compared to Roddy and Rita, the next level starts with a tutorial, and then we are sent through the sewers. However, this January, we found something that completely changed how we went about the level. We call this trick the Flying Dutchman. I won't spoil what it does, but I will explain what we're doing. So this revolves around checkpoints, so as you've seen me unfortunately die, there are checkpoints scattered around the levels, and whenever you die, you respawn at them. So I want to set up a very specific checkpoint here. I'm going to be right up against the wall, and I want to go as slow as possible. So right about here should be slow enough. So now we need to respawn at the checkpoint. There's nothing in this room that can deplete our health to 0. But there is another way we can die. If the boat is ever out of the water and the game registers the boat as being stuck, the game will kill us because it doesn't want us just soft locked and stuck here. And once we respawn, that is when the magic will happen. So just like that, we can phase through the wall, which will get us out of bounds. And that's cool, but what does that accomplish for us? Well, it turns out there's a loading zone right out of bounds. And it turns out that sends us to the very end of the level, the last straightaway. So we skip the entire tutorial, and we skip going through the sewers. This saves about 2 minutes. Yeah. So how we even came across that, I was looking at things using a cheating engine that lets us move the boat's position, and I just happened to find it. So it is a very welcome byproduct. Next is we're still on the boat. The boat doesn't only drive, it also has a bunch of different weaponry on it. What we'll see now is the crayon crossbow. After I shoot down these boxes, the level will begin in earnest, which Noose will explain.
Yep, the hench rats are after you on their mixer vehicles. There are 4 waves to this chase, the first being Fat Barry by himself, the fat rat you see chasing us. Then the second wave with Lady Killer joining Fat Barry, quite the stylish guy. In the third wave, Thimble-Nosed Ted joins the other 2. Then the fourth wave, Spike and Whitey step in. Each rat takes 3 hits before going down. There's a way to spawn the third wave early, but the margin of error is only 14 frames. Couple that with the somewhat difficult aiming controls, and it makes it near impossible to do without task tools. So Kuro, of course, doesn't do it here, though maybe he should go for it. Just kidding. We have to wait for each wave to spawn in, so the only part that really matters is the end, where we must down Spike and Whitey as soon as possible to end the mission. Once it's over though, during the cutscenes, Roddy ends up accidentally distracting Rita, they crash, and despite their efforts for the past 2 levels, they get captured and are brought to the Toad. Luckily we make it pretty quick with some experts shooting, right?
Yeah, doing my best. Spike is giving me a run for my money though.
Oh, understandable. He always does that.
Okay.
Such
good.
a pain.
So even though we just pummeled them with crayons, we unfortunately get caught by them because, yeah, as Newt said, Roddy distracts Rita and we crash into their dock. So now begins the next level called Escape the Lair. It is a very large room, and we start up very high. And since we are adept at descent, we can skip out a lot of portions of the room. So first I will get onto this corner of this platform, not to go too far forward or else I trigger a cutscene. Jump left to get onto this bridge, where I'm going to take another big leap to a climbable wall. If I went too far forward, I would die of fall damage. Not far enough, I would die to a kill plane. So fortunately, I get by unscathed, and we climb up to an elevator. Once we get to the rope swinging section, we're going to take a bit of an unorthodox shortcut. Once I get on the third, I'm going to spam jump as much as possible so I can get through the floor. As you can see, Roddy only needs his body touching the floor to count as him standing on it. So we get through alright. The rest of the section is pretty straightforward. We do one more cutscene skip by jumping on this fence, hitting this orb. Then we must hit the zip line and we'll open the vent, where we'll meet a door, which is a mashing minigame. It wants you to mash either A, B, or X. It's random what it wants you to do, so we have to react to it. Unfortunately, this is not the end of the level. There is another section called Follow That Girl, in which Roddy must chase down Rita, as she is his only way home. This is the second longest level of the game, so it is pretty lengthy, and I don't know, I need something to keep my attention, like just someone's condescending torso with their arms crossed. So I'm gonna take a few extra seconds to set up a visual glitch. You'll see me spam pause there. And I just so happened to pause when it was setting a checkpoint, which causes Roddy's disembodied torso to remain on the screen. And it will be here for the rest of the level. Obviously it's
Beautiful,
not...
isn't he?
What?
Beautiful, isn't he?
He is quite beautiful, yes. So yeah, enjoy him on the right side of your screen. So now, yeah, and he's not supposed to be in a cutscene, so he'll be there as well. You'll see on the bottom we have a little indicator of the boat. If it ever reaches the end, we'll fail the mission because that means Rita has escaped, but we won't have to deal with that. It's just there for effect. Here we're at this long straightaway, which we like to call hydration break, because all we do is hold forward, so take a sip, everyone. After this, I could try and ride against the brick wall. It is a bit dangerous as dying would send me back far, so I'm going to take the wide path, jump on this boat, and get by. We're going to come across another mashing door, and then we will have to evade detection of the fellow hench rats. We'll be using these propeller points to help our escape, which Newts will explain.
Yep, we haven't got to explaining these yet, but these orbs Kuro is collecting are called propeller points, and they move Roddy at a set speed and distance but give him temporary flight horizontally or vertically. We have to use them all here, but usually we avoid them, especially the blue propeller point, as it slows Roddy down to a crawl speed. Blue and purple points move you horizontally, purple being about twice as fast as the blue. And orange and yellow points move you vertically, yellow elevating you about twice as high as the orange. This next section coming up is the only cycle-dependent part of the level, so depending on what Kuro gets here, I have to wait a bit. Let's see what it is.
It's not fantastic, but there are worse cycles that you can get.
But definitely, and even those worse cycles, there's a little bit of working around to do. Definitely favorable. Anyway, now there's also a cutscene skip where we take a little bit of out-of-the-way movement, jumping to this dock and then towards the opening to the next door lift. For a while, it'll just be the same deal, so let's talk about Roddy and Rita's quirks and compare the two. Both have the same ground speed, but as we've seen, Rita is quite shorted with her airspeed, which is only made up for with her grapple mechanic. Her jump and double jump speed is 2/3 of her ground speed, and her fall speed is even slower, at half her ground speed. Roddy, the speed demon he is, on the other hand, he has very slightly slower jump speed, and double jump speed a bit lower than that. That is made up for with Roddy's fall speed being a good amount faster than his ground speed. Despite Rita's supposed athleticism and Roddy's klutziness, Roddy comes out on top to be the speed demon, as I said, and luckily we play as him more.
I guess that's the reasoning behind it, but even then, I wish Rita was as fast as Roddy.
Yeah, I know. Luckily we play more as Roddy during the run. Alright. Oh yeah. So the zip lines that you've also seen, where Roddy will grab onto them with his hands, even though that, ordinarily should just burn his hands, but Roddy's built different, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So the zip line, the faster that you travel, or the further down you grab the zip line, the faster you travel down, so we try to aim for certain spots where extra movement to get to that spot is made up for with the extra speed. And the task for this game, which I should mention, shows off these points perfectly. In 2024, I plan to create a high optimization task for the game, the third so far, so for anyone who wants to follow this game for the long haul, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, the current task, although a bit outdated now with new finds, still really impressive.
By the way, the pace here has been, so far, just overall pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, besides Jar Flies, everything's been moving pretty well.
Heck yeah. Alrighty, so since there's a good amount to cover, I'll talk ahead of the run here. After Roddy catches up with the boat, he rejoins Rita and she decides to let him stay after his valiant effort to make his way to her. Because they've also escaped the hench rats, they decide to keep on the move as to not get caught again. They do this by running errands for the Taskmasters, Socket Set, and Charlie Wu. So besides some miscellaneous plot points within those levels, there overall isn't anything relevant to discuss related to the story for about 4 levels. So we'll be returning to Piccadilly Square, the second of 5 times that we'll come here, and this time around we'll talk to Charlie Wu, who gives us the title of Most Honorable Chosen One, and motivates us to go save some orphans by pulling a drain plug to prevent the orphanage being flooded. Spoiler alert though, we never actually see the orphanage, nor the orphans. This level is called A Good Deed, and it is the second of 3 levels that involve using the Jammy Dodger. Because the Flying Dutchman was its own beast to explain, this is the point where we'll be explaining all the relevant mechanics and techniques for the Jammy Dodger. First off, of course, it is much different than controlling the rats. Excluding some things that will be more relevant in the third level, the controls are the analog stick for turning, A for acceleration, Y for reversing, and L for jumping. The most important of those is the L trigger, as jumping is key for gaining and maintaining high speeds. This is because of the forces being put on the boat at all times, those being gravity and buoyancy. You land back in the water from a jump, the boat will be pushed back up, and because you have momentum going forward, some of that upward momentum will actually be converted into forward momentum, giving you a little bit of boost in speed above what you would otherwise be capped to at your maximum speed when just accelerating. These are called dolphin dives, and chaining them together on straights or around some wider turns is... Sorry about that. So outputs a good consistent amount of speed. However, there's an extra mechanic that adds several more layers to it. There is a 1 second cooldown for every L trigger press you do that results in a jump. And since you're out of the water for more than a second, you can press L as soon as you land. This leads to more of the downward momentum being converted to forward momentum immediately instead of having to wait for the boat to bob back up from the water. This technique is called insta-boosting, and while it depends on the pitch, yaw, and rotation of the boat, or just the specific angles at which it can tilt from certain factors like colliding with objects or the way that it tilts back and forth in the water naturally, you can get really good results with it if you take the time to master it. As far as the tricks for the level, the only thing that you really see here is Kuro jumping over some of the garbage piles that are littered throughout the level. Though these heaps of garbage can sometimes make things difficult, as we've seen already, if you don't set up for these jumps properly, wasting more time than just going around. The amount of risk reward for doing these jumps, and honestly even doing the level normally, by driving over ramps, makes it one of the more hated levels for runners. Why ramps? Well, sometimes you'll slightly clip into the top edge of the ramp, or, depending on if you landed near one, the bottom, which can throw the boat for a spin or two. These moments are called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater moments, at least that's what we like to call them, simply because of the nature of some of these mishaps. As mentioned earlier, there's a good bit more related to the Jammy Dodger, so when it comes time for the last of the boat levels, I'll have Kuro explain that. If you want to learn all about the boat, I am actually going to be producing some highly detailed level guides. And the Race with the Rats guide will include all the info you could ever dream of having for the Jammy Dodger. So be on the lookout for those as they start to get uploaded come next year.
Yeah, as we're coming out to the end of a good deed, you'll see on the top right that I have infinite amount of these Roman candles. That's a result of the Flying Dutchman. Since we never completed the tutorial like normally, it never took that away. We're not supposed to have infinite of these, but it is a nice side effect to have.
Yep.
So
that is the end of Good Deed. We return to the hub world for the third time to speak to Socket Set again, and he wants us to get yet another jar of flies for the same client. We never see the flies, but rather we end up facing a whole new problem.
Well.
Yeah, so we go back to the same Jar of Flies level, so we'll be going through the same Jar of Flies skip, except there's no invisible wall or anything preventing us from going, so it'll just be a normal jump. Just gonna make sure to save there is like soft lock potential that we've unfortunately found. Anyways, so instead of collecting flies, we are set off to kill Arachne, who is described by the game as an erotic and sexy Brazilian spider. Her and her children have invaded the sewers, and Roddy takes it upon himself to eradicate them, I guess. Arachne is an OC, do not steal. She was exclusively made for the video game, and did not appear in the movie. Arachne also serves as our first boss battle, meaning we're going to have to be using combat for the first time. You've seen us use an attack for attack jumps and death cancels, but now we'll actually be using it to deal damage. So before we can get to Arachne, we are dropped down by this welcome mat and must take an elevator up to reach her. I'll explain the combat using her children. So first we have Roddy's normal attack, which looks very much like Sora Kingdom Hearts. It's alright, it has good range, but it's pretty slow, so we don't like using it. Instead, we will like to use the more powerful spin attack. This does 4 HP, which instantly kills the Arachne spawn. But an issue with that is that it has a lot of cooldown at the end, so we can't just spam it. So our main attack will be the fencing combo. It has much less range than the normal attacks, but they are much easy. It's much faster. So we'll be using a mix of those fencing attacks plus the spin combos. But unlike her children, we can't just wail on Arachne. We have to make her vulnerable. We do this by abusing her maternal instincts. We throw her eggs at her, and as she catches and puts them away to safety, we can attack her. We'll have to do this typically like 3 times. There is potential to do a 1 cycle. However, there's not a consistent setup for it. You can either body block her with Roddy, and she'll be unable to get past you to put the egg down, or there's a way to just break her AI, but again, there's no consistent setup. So we unfortunately are getting the 3 cycle. We'll have to do 3 throws. That's standard. Her jumping all the way over there is not standard. But anyway, we beat the level. Now we are rewarded with a new sword for Roddy. It is a green plastic toothpick. It doesn't do anything besides look different. Damage output is exactly the same, but we get a cutscene for it. Anyway, so after this, we are sent back to the hub world. We go to Charlie Wu to pick up the mission running the Gauntlet, which is the longest level in the game at like 11-12 minutes. When I submitted this game, I played it. But as of 3 weeks ago, we do something a bit differently. I'll try to explain it as best I can. This goes by fast. So Flushed Away as a game, it progresses linearly. And it has indiscriminate progression. It doesn't check what level you beat, it just knows to move on to the quote-unquote next level. Because of that, just make sure you're safe. So yeah, another thing that Flushed Away likes to do is set a checkpoint at the beginning of every level. This is so if you die before you reach another checkpoint in the level, you just respawn at the beginning, which makes sense. This level doesn't have a checkpoint at the very beginning. It has one at the end of the tunnel, but we can instead play the salvaging minigame, cancel it, and then we can sort of break it, so we get back to our normal camera angle, and if we are in the air when this finishes, it kills us. But wait, we didn't have a checkpoint in that level, so where does it send us? Well, deja vu, we are back to after we killed Arachne, and we go to talk to Charlie Wu to get the mission for running the Gauntlet. So what was the point of that? Do we just go back to the same level? Well, for all intents and purposes, we're still in running the Gauntlet as far as the game is concerned. So, but also when we go to the boat to progress, the game is told to progress, move to the next level, and it thinks we are at running the Gauntlet. So it goes to the level after running the Gauntlet and thus skips it. So we save 11 minutes from that. It is huge. Now we play a weird capture the flag game, which Nate will explain. Well, I don't miss my shots, hopefully.
Now that we've warped through time to skip 10 minutes of gameplay, let's get into Castle Siege quickly. The premise is that in lieu of the World Cup finals, football fans are now at war, and it's England versus Germany. We pick our fortress size, flag placement, and then it begins. It's a crayon crossbow which shoots straight shots but does less damage to the fortress, and it's used as a backup to capture the flags. O'Keel will use it here just for consistency. And then there's the mousetrap catapult, which fires eggs in an arc and takes down parts of the fortress in one hit. There are positions that we can fire at to move our weapons around, which Kuro moves the mousetrap to the great barrel here, then fires to take down the fortress. And if Germany plays nice and doesn't shoot back at him, then we can continue with Mousetrap, shooting the flags down, and if not, just use the crossbow. If you're lucky, you can get all 3 flags at once, but that depends on enemy flag placement and good aim with luck on your side.
Yeah, I
And
messed
the
up
level
my shot.
is...
Yeah, I messed up my shots, but fortunately Germany was nice to me. It can, if it hits your catapult on the gray can, it will send you back, and you can't hit anything from back where you start. But we get through it alright. So now we are at French Frog Legs. We are captured by the Toad's cousin, Le Frog. And now we must escape. We play as both Rita and Roddy. The first 3 rooms are with Rita. They're very quick and fast-paced. Really shows off Rita's movement capabilities. You'll see a lot of instant grapples. I'll just be intentionally jumping or running off the edge, so I skip the animation. So first room went by real quickly. Next room we utilize Rita's range. Fortunately she has really good eyesight, so we're intended to go through the perimeter, but we can just cut through the half the level like that. Then we perform another grapple jump to get on top of the climbable wall, and that will be the end of room 2, which is, I guess, the most complicated room. The next room is pretty straightforward. We just run off so we can do an instant grapple, do 1 more grapple to reach the door, and then we will meet Roddy and the Frog for the next boss battle.
Yep. The frog could be annoying, but play it right and it's an easy fight. We swat at his tongue when he sticks it out at us, then we use a Y triple combo and then the B spin attack. He does the same thing again, so we repeat with the exception that we hit with just the spin part of the B spin attack, because at 9 HP he'll switch to a different pattern. But this takes him down to 8. Then we walk towards him, move perpendicular to him when he tries to slap us to death. Then we use both hits of the B spin attack, and then repeat once more to take him down. And after the level is over, Roddy and Rita are captured again by Spike and Whitey as soon as they leave the area though, setting us up for the final level.
Alright, I got through Le Frog alright. You could see me struggling with the camera a bit. That is honestly the true boss of that fight. But now we're on to the final level of the game, the Amphibian Dawn. It starts with having 19 cutscenes to skip through, so I'll be doing that while Newt's kind of sums up the plot that's been loosely followed thus far.
The Amphibian Dawn opens up with Roddy and Rita taking away the Toad's big moment by telling him to his face his entire plan to flood Metropolis and incur rat genocide, basically making it a roast session. Toad becomes hopping mad, tries to end Roddy early by making him fall, but that doesn't work, so he begins to throw flasks of liquid nitrogen at him. Since he's seeing red, the Toad does not realize that Roddy is making him destroy his own machines with the flasks. Once all 3 panels are hit 3 times with the flasks and are destroyed, we move on to the next part, where Rita takes care of the 3 Hentrats, Fatberry, Thimble-Nosed Head, and Lady Killer once and for all.
Yeah, so in the room where we fight all 3 of them, we fight one at a time. Each of them has a specific weakness in the room. We have to exploit that, and then we're able to hit the rats for damage. All of these will be 2 cycles. It is technically possible to do it within 1 cycle of just one time exploiting their weakness, but it's difficult for a multitude of reasons. So we'll just be doing the 2 cycle. Fatberry, so I can get 6 hits in before he gets up again. Then he'll get up and hit him one last time. The next 2 fights will be a bit more interesting. I'm going to be using something called effect stacking. So Thimble-Nosed Head, his weakness is the light. So when he hits the light first, I will activate it again. This will be so when he becomes invulnerable again, he'll instantly be hit by the light, so I can hit him again. So it's faster than having to just wait. Same thing can be done with Lady Killer, provided it goes right. Okay. And yeah, so his weakness is his toupee falling off, so after he picks it up, we get to wail on him, and that takes care of the hash rats.
Alrighty. So as Roddy is fully familiar, he goes through one last obstacle course as he chases the Toad down. There are a slew of dangers here, including the many pitfalls scattered throughout the section. blasts of steam too. So if you weren't satisfied with the amount of steam that was into the lair, you're in for a treat now. There's also this door that if Roddy is caught between them will lead to an instant death, but Kuro avoids that. There's also electricity that also leads to instant death, no surprise. And a fan at the end, which, ironically enough, does not lead to instant death. Instead, we walk right through it. The intended way is to veer left to throw down a switch and then go past the fan when it's stopped, but there's no hitbox on it at all, so there's no point in doing that. After showcasing Roddy's immunity to fans, we now move on to the final part, saying goodbye to Roddy as we no longer play as him for the rest of the run.
Yep, so now we're Rita. So what we have to do is activate these computers, press a button, and then pull a latch. We're depleting his liquid nitrogen supply. We have to do this 3 times. You'll notice after I press the button, I slide off just so I can do an instant grapple. So that's 2, and after this 3rd one, we are going towards the final boss battle. We don't actually like fight him directly like we did the hench rats. We knock platforms out from him, so I'm gonna use insta-grapples to knock the liquid nitrogen out of his hand, which will then weaken his platforms. I'll then hit the planks, so I'll have to do that 6 times total. Time will be coming up pretty soon. It's when he falls off and all 3 platforms are gone, so I will call time when that happens. So that's 3, now we have 2 more to deal with. Oh, missed that. Yeah, so I missed that again. Okay. Hit that one that time. So now it's 1 last 1, so after this, I will call time. And time.
Alrighty, the day is saved. Roddy and Rita stop the toad cold in his tracks, and no rat genocide of any sort will occur today. Roddy invites Rita along on her holiday, giving him the role of first mate, and he accepts. That, ladies and laddies, is flushed away for you. The game is continuously evolving, so expect more from us in the future. And man, this run was pretty good. What was the final time?
Well, we wait for that answer. Anyways, yeah, this game will surprise you as a speed game. I first came into this ironically, but I'm still here a year and a half later. So if you have any interest, like, we would love to have you as a fellow flusher. You can find our Discord through our speedrun.com page. If you want to keep up with me, I don't really stream that often, but I'd appreciate a follow on Twitch. But I do have big plans for my YouTube channel, so subscribe there so you don't miss out. You can just search up Flushed Away Speedrun on YouTube, and both Newt's and my channels will be the top results. Anything else you want to add, Newt's?
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, or actually no, you didn't mention it, but there is a bounty for a trick called Box Skip in the warehouse room of Enter the Lair, right before we went out of bounds. And that which you can earn $100 for. So if you want more information on that, join the Flushed Away Discord server, whose link is in our speedrun.com leaderboard. Another reminder too that I'll be releasing Flushed Away level guides on my channel intermittently throughout 2023, and they will be quite highly detailed. So if you are entirely new to the game, don't really know the controls that well, just have seen it in little bits and pieces, you're gonna learn, trust me.
And we'd be more than happy to directly teach you in the Discord, should you want to, before those guides get made. But anyways, with that, thank you, License-a-thon, for having us as the final run of the event. And thank you, the viewers, for sticking around. I really hope you enjoyed the run. If we haven't been transitioned out already, I'll just smile at the camera and seize all movement until we move on.